Activate your voice!
Activate it now.
Voice activation.
Live from Maryland, this is Activate Live.
Welcome to Activate Live. I'm Tanya Hutchins, coming to you from Upper Marlboro, Maryland. The AFL-CIO's Martin Luther King Jr. Civil and Human Rights Conference is this week, and we're here to preview it with two IAM members who have been active participants in many past conferences. Martin Luther King Jr. Day is Monday, January 15th, and this year's conference is in our Southern Territory in Houston, Texas. The theme is Reclaiming Our Dream: Strategize, Organize, Mobilize, and close to 1,000 labor, civil rights leaders, and advocates are expected to attend. Well, have you ever been to one of the AFL-CIO's Martin Luther King conferences? What do you do to commemorate Martin Luther King Jr.'s legacy in your local district or territory? Well, comment on this video and let us know. We'd like to thank those of you who commented last week: Adam Beasley, Paul Berry, Neil Gunning, John Coveney, Walter Ingram, Natalie Gonzalez, Covang, and Judy Foley, just to name a few. Thank you for commenting. Well, we always like to start out with some labor news, and Delane Adams is here with some good news, which we always like, Delane.
Yes, we always like to start this party off right with some good news. And that's organizing. So we have new members in Juneau, Alaska at Ilsen Air Force Base, and also at Holloman Air Force Base in New Mexico. It's 150 F-16 mechanics right there in Juneau, Alaska, and then also at Holloman we have aircraft mechanics as well. So welcome to your union if you're out there in Juneau, Alaska, and Alamogordo, New Mexico.
Congratulations.
Yes. And in other news, of course, you know, the Machinists Union, we have been very big on making sure that trade is done the right way. And our very own Owen Hernstad, our Chief of Staff here and our Director of Trade and Globalization, has a new blog out. And it's titled, Renegotiating NAFTA is an Opportunity to Get Trade Policy Right. And that's on the Economic Policy Institute blog. And so thank you, Owen, for putting out that piece, and we hope to share that. And if you're watching out there, please share it as well. Always good information coming out of EPI. Yeah. And Owen. And Owen, definitely. And big news out of Delaware. We fought back against so-called right to work. There was a right to work ordinance proposed in Delaware in Sussex County Council, and it was voted down 4-1. And so that's big news. The tide is turning. You know, it's 2018, and I think people are starting to realize that right to work is just a false slogan. Yes, they're finally doing their research. People and voters especially are finding out that right to work is wrong for workers. It is. Definitely wrong. And if you want to find out about all of this, please subscribe to iMail. I mean, we know a lot of people out there go to our social media networks, but iMail is the best way to get detailed news and information about what's happening with the union. And you see the graphic on the screen. If you just go to your right-hand, upper right-hand corner, and it says subscribe to iMail, right there. And if you go ahead and you just enter your email address, you'll start getting weekly updates. And that's the best way to get information from our union, from your union. So just subscribe to iMail. Yeah, best way, and then be able to have information that you can keep in your back pocket whenever you need to talk about our great union. And we bring you news from each territory, so no matter where you live, we'll make sure that you know about the issues that are important. Yes. So. Anything else? That's it? No, I'll see you in Houston. Okay, see you there. Thank you so much. Take care. Great. Well, we begin our MLK conference preview with IAM Grand Lodge Representative Luther Williams from our Midwest Territory. In 2011, at the inaugural IAM Human Rights Convention, Williams was the first recipient of the prestigious IAM Keeper of the Dream Award for the unselfish persistence, dedication, and devotion to the preservation and continuance in the fight for human rights, civil rights, and workers' rights for all people. Luther, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Tanya.
Now, you have quite a bit of history in the civil rights movement, dating all the way back to when you were a child. We actually have a photo here. Tell me about this black and white photo and why it is so significant.
Well, this photo, my mother, who was my mentor in life, as well as the person who got me integrated into the civil rights movement and brought me along into the civil rights movement. She was a quiet warrior who stepped up for the rights of in Jim Crow South. This picture was taken at an all-white elementary school in the segregated Suffolk, Virginia, in 1965. That's me in the center. My mother is on the left-hand side. Alfonso Boone, another student. Valjean Everett is to the right, and Russell Boone Sr. is at the forefront. And our local civil rights activist and leader, Haywood Riddick Jr., is in the forefront. So this picture was taken because it was one of the first integration attempts, integration of schools in the city of Suffolk, Virginia. But it was also one of the first integrations in the state. And my mother was the person who propelled me to become active in the civil rights movement. I was following her lead, and she mentored me as well as our community to fight for the rights of all.
Now, Luther, what was it like going through that integration process?
Well, that's an interesting question, because during the time the school that I attended was all black. So for us to take a step in the community, it was a courageous step for my mother, those students, and the parents, and as the civil rights activists that were there. It was a major step, and it took us a lot of a leap of faith, but for the courage. We turned the fear to courage to stand on the steps of that white school and let them know that we demand the same rights as all the students. And that picture was actually the photograph that was put in the newspaper, and it was later on given to my mother. But it not only did that encourage others in our community to rally around the effort, but it encouraged others to get involved into the civil rights movement also. And my mother was at the forefront of that. Her name was Dorothy Marie.
Well, thank you, Dorothy Marie, for raising Luther Williams. Now, we also have a photo of you, which I'm guessing maybe in a museum. I don't know where it is, but you're at a fountain. And speaking of Jim Crow, you were saying these separate fountains were very common. Tell us about this photo and what it represents.
Well, this photo was taken at the Civil Rights Museum in Selma, Alabama, at the 50th anniversary of the march of the Selma March. And this photo is significant to me because I was subject to a child to this type of treatment. My mother and my grandmother, who had to count peanuts and beans to actually try to vote, they were subject to these disparities of the inhumanity of it all, to have a separate water fountain just because you were African American or black or colored at the time. So that photo is important to me because it's like we have come full circle to this picture. We own that. As a matter of fact, I worked at Norfolk Naval Shipyard. I started in the early 80s to work. I was a nuclear marine machinist at Norfolk Naval Shipyard where I joined the IAM. And even though the fountains were not labeled at the time and the bathrooms were not labeled at the time, they still had those two bathrooms, two men's bathrooms and two women's bathrooms beside each other. And the question would always provoke, why do we have two men's bathrooms? And then it would bring up the conversation about even the military was segregated at the time.
So the laws change, but sometimes society is slow to catch up.
Absolutely.
Now, I understand the Midwest Territory has its own human rights program, and you're the coordinator. How has it been going?
Well, it's been going great. With the leadership of the Midwest Territory and with a lot of assistance from our communication representative, Latoya Igwegwe, we put together a program called IAM Helps in the Community. And the idea of it is the first thing to do is to do true community services in the communities where our members are, whether they're non-members, to show that our organization is embedded in our community to help the community. And as a civil rights activist myself, I always feel as though community services, even though the civil rights movement was the forebearer of us getting involved in the communities, to get the communities to understand the issues that they were faced with and how to fight those issues.
Now, how long have you been going to the Martin Luther King conferences, and why is it so important for you to be there?
Well, I've been going approximately 20 years to the conference every year. And to me, the importance of me being there is to get the energy and the message that the conference provides to all of the activists that are there. And it's important to be there because Martin Luther King believed in community services. So we do community services projects when we're there. But the most important reason to be there is when you leave. You know, a lot of time we go to conferences and we preach to the choir. Everybody understands why we're there. The fight needs to continue, specifically in the climate today, where that picture that you saw, I'm hearing some of the same language repeated that was repeated back in 1965. And the importance of that is that we preach to the choir, but when we leave there, the message should be is for that choir there to go out and sing that song and spread that activism throughout the community, throughout whatever organizations they belong to, and do those things that make a difference in society.
Now, we have some photos here, Luther, of you at different conferences showing how active you have been with the Coalition of Labor Union Women, whether it's the Martin Luther King conferences. And this one, I think I was with you. What was this,
yes,
in Detroit?
It was at the CLU conference in Detroit.
Right. So even after this conference is over, there are so many other opportunities that we have, as you said, to perform community service and just get the word out about how important it is to stick together in solidarity. This was Apala?
Yes, this is Apala, and these are two brothers from 751 in Seattle, Washington, and Apala. I'm a member of the very first chapter that started this year in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Excellent.
So and here's a result of, and one thing about Apala that I think is a lot that the history of Apala is so rich, and I just want to say that a lot of people don't realize that we were there for the 20th anniversary of Apala, but in Apala's very first conference, there was an incident with Rodney King, and this is an Asian Pacific Alliance of Labor, and they broke their conference. They stopped their conference to go march in defense of Rodney King. So what my whole point is, we are all connected, whether CBTU, APRI, Apala, LACLA, Pride at Work, whichever ones we belong to, we all have the same goal. It's one movement, all goals. We have the same goal.
That's right. And you mentioned all of our constituency groups, CBTU, the Coalition of Black Trade Unionists, APRI, A. Philip Randolph Institute, Pride at Work. We all work together, and we're more powerful together because there's power in numbers. Before we leave you, tell us what part of King's legacy really resonates with you, if there's something that you haven't mentioned already. Well,
Martin Luther King, there's a lot of things about him that inspire a lot of us. And I'm just going to say, when he talked about what we do in our society as adults is we protect the youngest and the most vulnerable. And one of Martin Luther King's statements about his 4 daughters, saying that he would like his 4 daughters to grow up in a society where they were judged by their character and not the color of their skin, is what we should look as a marching order for everybody in our country, for everybody that's ever been disadvantaged. And this propels us. I think that to stand on the shoulders of my mother, Martin Luther King, and these activists, we have to pass it on to our children and let them know that we are here to create a better world through social activism.
I couldn't have said it better. Thank you so much, Luther. And Luther, we just touched the surface of your history. If you
Thank
have
you
ever
very
had
much. I appreciate it.
I'm sorry to talk over you. If you have ever had lunch or dinner with Luther Williams, you could have lunch for hours because he is just full of so much history, and it's a joy just talking to him. So we really appreciate you taking the time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tanya.
Well, many people have favorite quotes from Dr. King, and here is one of them. There's nothing new about poverty. What is new, however, is that we have the resources to get rid of it. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said that in 1964 during his Nobel Peace Prize address. It has been more than 50 years since 200,000 people converged for the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. And the organizer of that march, A. Philip Randolph, is often overlooked when the march is mentioned, but it's important to remember his legacy as well. It is intertwined with King's. Randolph founded the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters, the first successful black trade union, and he said the essence of trade unionism is social uplift. The labor movement has been the haven for the dispossessed, the despised, the neglected, the downtrodden, the poor. Randolph and King worked together with countless others in the civil rights movement, and they relied on the support of workers, including union members, to fight for equality. Now, if you're just joining us, we're previewing the AFL-CIO's Martin Luther King Jr. Civil and Human Rights Conference coming up this week in Houston, and we're talking to union members who have attended many past conferences to give us a feel of why it's so important for them to be there. One of the machinists I first met at my first conference is Mike Edwards, who is now retired. And we have Mike joining us from Missouri. Mike? Hey,
yes,
Mike.
Hello.
Hey there. I know out there you say Missouri, don't you?
Yeah, say Mizzou.
Mizzou, okay. Well, Mike, how long have you been going to the Martin Luther King conferences?
Since 1978.
Wow, so you've been going a long time, just like Luther.
Oh, yeah.
Every time I see you, you have a Missouri delegation with you. How did you get a group so committed to go to each conference and continue?
Well, one of the most important things that we all thought about our history, the way things had happened, and what we need to do to try to make a change. And the only way where we were going to be able to do that was to get together as one unit and fight for one cause and one justice for all.
And we have some photos of some past conferences. I think this one was the parade that took place on Martin Luther King Day in San Antonio. What stands out to you at each conference? What were some of the highlights for you?
I guess probably the most important thing that I look forward to by going to those conferences was to seeing the people being energized and trying to help and trying to make a change. And if you go back from the 50s up until now, even now, you can see changes are being made. And we know for a fact that in order to get those things done, we had to come together collectively and try to make some things happen for the youth that's coming behind us. And one of the best things that really came out of it was because of the way that the machinists took the leading role in trying to help and preserve some of our rights that we had.
You're right. If we don't remind each other, we're quickly to forget, aren't we?
Right. And I just enjoyed doing that. You know, that's one of the most important things I had enjoyed doing. And one of my followers and heroes, as we call him, was Elias Howard. He was one of the first guys that got involved in this human rights issues. Here, not only here in St. Louis, you know, we have had a lot of issues here, but we were able to work through a lot of those things through the help of our union. You know, the Machinist Union has been forefront. I'm telling you, you know, helping us getting our feet on the ground and getting to a place where we need to go. You know, they was very supportive in that.
What do you hope that union members remember as they head to Houston this year?
Think about what you need to do to make life better, not only for yourself, but for other people too. All of us are the same. And we need to start collectively, start thinking about what can we do to make our future as good as it is for us now.
You know, we put up a quote from Dr. King and a quote from A. Philip Randolph. What part of King's dream really speaks to you and resonates with you?
The way he stood up to that when he did that last speech of I Had a Dream, and he talked about some of the things that he had accomplished and some of the things where he would want to go and what some of the things that he wanted to be. He talked about so many things. He talked about the Jericho Road all the way down, in Israel. He talked about some people that he had met, and he even talked about his name, Martin Luther, how he obtained that name and what it meant a lot. So to have someone to put his life on the line, for every American, it was historical and great.
To give us some background on you, we always like to educate our fellow members and even the general public about us as machinists. You're retired now, but tell us where you were, what job you were doing when you first joined the Machinists Union.
I was working for McDonnell Douglas at that time, and I was an inspector before I got fully involved in the union. And once I got involved in the union, and I realized how important it was, not only for myself, but for other people out there that was trying to make a great living. I use that word a lot, great. A better living in life, from the $2 to the $15. Now I started off at making $2.15 an hour.
Wow.
And once I got into the union, I jumped from $2.15 an hour to $9 something an hour. And from there, things just got even better. So it just shows you how important it is to have a union.
What was it What was it that made you decide that, I want to be a union member, or was it for the fact of the job you were doing?
No, I just, you go back to, I was here in the era when Dr. Martin Luther King was here, and John Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, and all those guys that was here at that time. And during that period of time, you could see the country as a whole was changing. And you want to be a part of that because you're seeing how your fathers and your fathers' fathers suffered trying to make a living. And we knew for a fact that the only way to be able to get something, to get a better time in life was to be a part of a union. Because the union did all of the necessary things that need to be done to protect you and make sure that you were able to get a good standard of living, which you needed to survive.
And that still holds true today, doesn't it?
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Mike Edwards, for joining us from Mizzou. See, I'm learning.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Anything else you want to mention?
I just want to mention, about all of the conferences that we had, the MLK conference that was part of, the APOI conference, the CBTU, NAACP, and lastly, but least, the IAM, Human Rights Conference. I think it was probably one of the best conferences I went to. We had one in Florida, was fantastic. Even the one that we had in San Juan was absolutely perfect, And I just wanted to comment them for doing such a great job and for getting people to understand how important it is to be part of a union and what the union really does provide.
That's right. There's a lot of education that goes along with, not only just our community service, but educating our fellow members and educating the public.
Yeah, and I was able to, going to all those conferences, we were able to come back and bring the information back to our membership to let them know what your union really does for you. It's a great movement, a great place for people to go and get started in.
And Mike, before you leave, I have to ask you, how is retirement?
Well, I tell you what, I just got back in town. Like I said, I've been traveling a lot, and it's fantastic, I just want to.
A big smile came across your face when I asked that.
Just want to. I was able to get 44 years in with this union, and I tell people, it's something that you really wanted to do. It's fantastic. I don't have to worry about a thing. I got insurance. I got a really nice pension coming in, and I'm happy.
Well, thank you so much, Mike.
At a young age.
You look great and you look happy. So thank you very much. And we appreciate you taking the time today.
Sure. All right, thank you.
Well, how will you celebrate Martin Luther King Day on Monday? Community service, reflection, education? Let us know. Dr. King was one of the most visible civil rights leaders, but he was not alone. He knew that it took all of us to create positive change, and the labor movement is a big part of that. Now, you can let us know by sending us a comment on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. You see the icons right there. We have people who have joined us who are watching with us right now. We really appreciate that. Adriana Picasso, she says, thank your mom, Luther, for this IAM sister. So thank you, Adriana, for joining us and letting us know about that as well. We appreciate everyone who has joined. Rhonda Rogers says, I miss Dr. King. He understood the connection between human rights and economic rights. So we get some thanks out there. Keep commenting. Even if we're not live, you can still comment and let us know how you are commemorating Martin Luther King Day on Monday, if you have any type of anything going on in your local or your district. And before we go, we always like to tell you about events that are coming up. We've been talking about the Martin Luther King Jr. Civil and Human Rights Conference this Friday through Monday in Houston, Texas. The Connecticut State Council of Machinists meets the weekend of January 20th, and the Florida State Council meets January 21st through the 25th. And don't forget, the deadline for the Machinist Union Scholarship Competition is February 23rd. So mark your calendars, February 23rd. Your application must be postmarked by that date. Don't forget to follow the MLK Conference on Twitter at the AFL-CIO account. On Facebook, the AFL-CIO will bring you the Movement Building Panel live with President Richard Trumka on Friday. And on Saturday, Reverend William Barber's keynote address. Also, follow the Machinist Union social media accounts to see our community service project. That will be on Saturday, and the parade on Monday. So join us next week when we'll recap the highlights of the conference, and we'll be coming up on the 1-year anniversary of the Women's March in Washington, D.C. I can't believe it's been a year already. So that's it for this week. We'll see you next week, and spread the word by sharing this video. Thank you.